everybody. Welcome back to We Are the Batman. I'm Mike.
And I'm Matthew.
And today we're doing something kind of neat because we're living in a world now where we've got, I don't even know how many Batman actors we have anymore, Matt. It's
9.
I don't know. I can't keep track anymore. But we've had Robin technically once in the movies. Once and only once. We did not have one in the Dark Knight trilogy, no matter how much they try to make that work. But that's for another show. But man. I think you had the idea, let's try to come up with a way to make Robin work cinematically, whether it's in the Batman or just in general. How do we make Batman work? And I think that, I don't know, Matt, what really made you want to do this one?
Because Nightwing is my favorite character of all time. And I want to see him in a live action movie where I'm not wondering why it's not good. And not that I think Chris O'Donnell was bad. It's just a very those movies were what they were of the time. I don't hate it, but it'd be nice to actually have his story.
Chris O'Donnell wasn't the problem with those movies. The problem was the movies he was in. So yeah, it's Nightwing is such a cool character, and I think that's kind of the reason why people want Robin to work, is because ultimately they want Nightwing, and Robin is kind of the stepping stone to getting Nightwing. So you've got to find a way to bridge that gap, I think. So you're the Nightwing guy. You're wearing the Nightwing shirt on the podcast logo of all things. You've done the cosplays, and we've both read. Nightwing was the series I collected the most, I think, growing up, because Nightwing's cool. He's like a ninja basically. So let's start with you, man. Like, how are we making Dick Grayson work?
Yeah, see, the thing of it is that I think, unlike so many other superheroes, Nightwing is one of the only superheroes who has been two distinct superheroes. So he spends a large amount of time as Robin hanging out with Batman. And if you don't know who Dick Grayson is, or you don't know who Nightwing is, you do know. Anytime you see a movie or a cartoon with Batman and Robin, that is Dick Grayson as Robin. Mm-hmm. Some of the more recent direct-to-DVD DC films aside, the old Batman, Adam West, Burt Ward. Burt Ward is playing Dick Grayson Robin. Titans cartoon, it's Dick Grayson Robin. The Superpowers, that's Dick Grayson as Robin. That new Titan show that I couldn't get into, this Dick Grayson is Robin. Like, Dick Grayson has been Robin and is always Robin. And then you don't until you get into some of the more recent stuff in the last 10 or 15, maybe 20 years, where he goes into being Nightwing and other people become Robin. And I think that's his ultimate downfall, is you got to get through him being Robin before you get to him being Nightwing.
Yeah.
And it's not an easy thing to do because, I think the safe thing they did with Chris O'Donnell was not say how old he was. So that you couldn't say,
they use the phrase college student, but that's about where they leave it.
Yes, because in the original comic, he's 12, and that's just horrible and unrealistic.
Yeah. You can't do that. You can't do that.
So they age him up usually in live action, so it's not as, horrible. And I think that's where it's just a difficult transition to that, because you either just start as Nightwing and say he was Robin and don't even address it, or you have to have time to percolate, for the character to percolate. And the problem with that is you have to have a Batman franchise that lasts beyond 2 movies in order for that to happen.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where I think with Robin is it's with Dick Grayson to the Robin Nightwing thing, it's got to be multiple movies, in my opinion, for it to even get to be Robin, let alone for him to journey on to be Nightwing. And I think that's where, that Titan show, I think the smartest thing they did was get him to be Nightwing as quick as they could, because that's, like you said, that's what everybody wants.
they also established that like this was already a Robin that had existed for a long time. He
Yeah.
was at the beginning of his venturing off on his own. That's about the most I can say positive about that show. I think that show sucks on so many levels, but I know it's got its fans. So sorry if you're a fan of
Thank
that
you.
show. I hate it. That show is terrible. I haven't watched Doom Patrol. I've heard Doom Patrol is fantastic. I think Titans is a I knew from the first episode that I was gonna have problems with Titan when they had Dick Grayson on his own, not in Bloodhaven. He was just in Detroit. And I was like, already you've lost me because the most basic detail of this character that he operates on his own in Bloodhaven. You couldn't even get that right. I'm out. I
Yeah.
I I I give any TV show, no matter what it is, I give the 3 episode chance. You got 3 episodes to hook me. You could they I watched the whole first season of Titans because I wanted to like it so bad, and it sucks on a whole other level. Anyway, this is not the anti-Titan show. But no, the one
No,
thing
it is
that
not.
they got right was that they were like, if we're gonna do Robin eventually becoming Nightwing, we need to have this be an already established older Robin, and that part at least made sense. And yeah, getting from Robin to Nightwing is a long adventurous journey. And if you're going to try to get there cinematically, we need to have some time living in a world with a Dick Grayson Robin.
Well, you also have to get Batman to the point where he would do that. Because look, Robert
Yeah,
Pattinson as Batman in that first Batman, there's no way he didn't even want what's her name to help him. He
yeah,
just used her, but it's not like that guy in that movie is not going to grab an orphan and train him to
no.
be a
He still
vigilante.
hasn't figured out his relationship with Alfred, let alone
Yeah.
taking on a ward.
So I think that's what the original films kind of got right is like you can't bring Robin in until like the third or fourth movie. And
Yeah,
for me, what I would probably do, and I think we've discussed this before, is like I would have Dick Grayson be in the third or fourth movie, but he never becomes Robin. And kind of
interesting.
like they did with Robin's Reckoning, the two-parter that kind of tells Robin's origin in the Batman the Animated Series, where
Yeah,
he is a kid when he meets Batman and he's going through the whole thing with his parents being killed and trying to find out about like Zuko who killed him. So you have I would do like a teenage, like 15, 16-year-old actor or character. This happens to his family. He's at least old enough that if he does get into fisticuffs, he might be able to win. But you see him doing that against Bruce Wayne's wishes, doing it behind his back, not knowing, and then partway through the movie realizes like, oh, you're Batman. That's why you took me in. Let's go do this. And then at the end of the movie, it is established like, okay, you did this. You better listen to me going forward. And if you do, I'll let you be my sidekick. And then the next film having 2 or 3 years and Dick Grayson now 18 or 19, he is now his sidekick, not him ever as a teenager or definitely not a preteen running around dodging bullets and trying to fight criminals.
yeah. I it's a lot of story to tell is the thing. And when it's the comics, you've got the time to breathe. When it's an episodic TV show, there's other mechanics you can use to time jump and tell the backstory as you go.
Yeah.
In movies, you don't always have that luxury. Where I think the most potential is going to fall in is if Matt Reeves continues this trend he has started with. I call it a trend, it's been one movie, but this long form almost character study essay as a film, with the 3 hour movie like the Batman. I think he's got the best shot because he's
Yeah.
got that long form storytelling thing down. He can tell a lot of story. He's the one right now that I feel the most confident could tell a story where Battinson eventually would take on a ward. Now it's going to depend on how much we play with time because we have absolutely 0% idea what's going to happen in the Batman sequel. We just don't know. We have no
Yeah.
earthly idea. But So it depends on how much do we pick up immediately where the first one ended. Do we pick up 5 years later and he's started perfecting his playboy exterior as Bruce Wayne? Like, so it depends on where we go. But I think if anyone's got a chance in hell of doing it right now and doing it the way that I think we both know it would work best, it's Matt Reeves. You know, Zack Snyder has already created a world where a Batman, a Robin has existed. We don't know for sure which one. I believe the rumor is that the Robin that was killed, whose suit we see in BVS, was Dick Grayson, not Jason Todd. But none of that's ever been confirmed. So I'd kind of like to see that, because honestly, because that Robin suit's pretty cool, and I kind of want to see it in action. But you know, that's just me. So yeah, but so as far as your plans, Matt, for or your ideas for how to make this work, what have you got in your utility belt of ideas?
I mean, I explained that part, but I mean, I think the other side of it too is I think you just make it his own thing.
Yeah.
I think I really like, my thing really is like you're saying, if you get into what we want Nightwing. We want Dick Grayson as Nightwing. We will go through him being Robin
Right.
with the idea that maybe the fifth or sixth or seventh Batman movie he busts off and becomes Nightwing. And that's where I think it's a slow burn that we'd have to go through cinematically. So that's where, like, you look, not to get too far into the woods with this, the DC whole thing is so out there anyway that just start the movie with him as Nightwing. And what I would do is I would start him as Nightwing, or even maybe Agent 37 or 47 as Grayson, whatever, and just have him do a flashback narration of how I got here. My name's Dick Grayson. I am Nightwing. I was once Robin, Batman's sidekick, blah, blah, yakety schmackety. Tell it in a montage of how he got to where he is. And you end it with, I don't talk to bats very much anymore, and I've got my own city to defend. So let him take care of Gotham. This is where I dwell. Boom, Bloodhaven. We don't ever talk about it again. And
Yes.
just have Nightwing in Bloodhaven doing Nightwing stuff.
Every time someone says the word montage, all I can think about is South Park. We gotta do a montage.
Montage. Every scene you're getting better.
Oh, it's so good. It's so good. But it brings up something that we've brought up in other episodes about another comic book franchise, that being the MCU. And I know that you and a lot of people aren't super keen on the whole, like, what do you mean I got to watch movies and a bunch of TV shows? And because it is a lot. It's a lot of content to digest, and not everybody has the time to do it. It almost seems like stuff like this is the reason why having those shows as like supporting content can actually come in handy, because I know that, like, they're working on the Penguin series right now, which is supposed to be like how Penguin got to where he is, but I think they said it's also going to kind of help bridge the gap between the Batman and its sequel, which is an interesting idea. And so I think for stuff like that, this is where the utilization of a streaming series can really come in handy, because if you're gonna try to bridge that gap of him being Robin or him being Dick Grayson, wow, like, God, being Dick Grayson, becoming Robin, becoming Nightwing, whatever. It's like, yeah, like this is one of those scenarios where they could probably make that work.
Well, and dude, like, if we have 2 hours, I'll tell you the film version where he's with Batman, my film version where he's without Batman, my TV show that we do, or I could do a future Robin, a future Dick Grayson. Because I also have the idea that if you do a streaming series, and as much as some people don't like it, I'm me kind of moderately guilty of it, of like, dude, do it like, what is that show? This Is Us, or A Million Little Things, where, like, he is Nightwing, And then there's parts where he is Robin, and then there are parts where he is a kid. And you tell these three congruent stories throughout the show about different times in his life, learning different things and doing different things.
Right.
It does. You then have to do like, is he Robin with the Titans or is he Robin with Batman? But I mean, I think you could also do that as well because like I know a lot of people didn't like it, but I loved him as Agent 47. When he had that Grayson series, I think that's where he should be again. And
You
you
know
should
what? That
get him
wasn't
away.
bad. I read that. It wasn't bad. It wasn't my preferred take on Dick Grayson. It was good though. It was a good read.
Well, and it's one of those things where I think personally, you if that had been its own thing that was not Dick Grayson, I think it would have been great. But like you said, everybody wants Dick Grayson to be Nightwing. Like they just do.
Yeah.
They want him to be Nightwing. As cool as that was, yeah, we want him to be Nightwing, and that's where I kind of feel like let Nightwing rejoin Spiral and have that be his thing. Get him away
Yeah.
from being Batman or Batman Light. Let him be Nightwing, his own. I don't know, Nightwing, International Man of Mystery. I have no idea. But I think that's where like anything thematically could work. If you did, like I said, if I would probably start with him as Nightwing. Don't show Batman. I think the problem is unlike so many of the other characters in the Bat family, Nightwing's the only one that left. So, like, if you do a Batgirl show, you have to somehow reason away Batman. If you would do a Titan show, like they did, I guess it was in a different city, but eventually Batman shows up. But if you
Yes,
play
sir.
this estranged Nightwing who is pick Bloodhaven as his place, with the exception of brief flashes of Batman in his origin, like montage flashback thing, you just Nightwing's in Bloodhaven doing his thing. And I think that would be the most interesting, the most dynamic, the most fun way, and would be easy. Like you can just tell 3-4 of those movies. It could be its own standalone franchise that doesn't have to depend on anything else. Because when you read that Nightwing comic, with the exception of maybe the Flash or Huntress, there aren't a lot of other superheroes there. Like Robin will show like Tim Drake or Damian Wayne, depending on which Robin is Robin at the time of the book, they will sometimes show up. But it's not like, you know, it's not like Batgirl, Batman's always there. Like if you read that Bloodhaven comic, he'll go a good 15, 20 issues and Batman's not around.
Yeah, you rarely see him. If you do, it's a brief mention. He's not ever he's rarely a like main or supporting character. It's about Nightwing.
Yeah.
Um and
Especially if you fudge the timeline where instead
yeah,
of going off with the Titans, he goes off to Bloodhaven. Because there's a solid chunk of time in the comics where Dick Grayson and Bruce Wayne are not vibing, do not talk, are not cool with each other.
yeah, we talked about that in our when we were reviewing the last Arkham.
Yeah.
It's like that was one of the first times we ever saw the two of them working together because it was an estranged relationship. They did not speak. Um and it's funny you mention that because if you remember in the Batman, they straight up name drop Bloodhaven.
Yeah. Yeah.
Catwoman says that's where she's going to go after she leaves Gotham. So like we're already and also Arrow when it was on the air in like season 2 or 3 because at the time when Arrow was at its peak, they were working on a Nightwing TV show.
Yeah.
That eventually turned into Titans, but at the time they were working on a Nightwing television series that I think they had planned on tying into the Arrowverse, but then Warner Brothers put the hammer down on Bat Family stuff with their TV shows. But so the seeds have been planted many times before, and if they've already planted the seed that Bloodhaven exists in the Batman, then then that means it's there. So there's a lot we can do with that. It's one of those like it's a non-committal thing. It's like now we can at least acknowledge that it's there and that it exists so that we have it to play with if we decide we want to, but we're not committing to using it, which I think is a very smart way of handling that.
Well, and that's a very easy one-line way to build a world.
Yeah, it is. So now we know that that's there. We know that the Bloodhaven's there. It's the same with, all you got to do is just name drop, well, even like in the Arkham video games and Arkham Knight, they casually mention like Metropolis, or you see a poster for like vacation in Metropolis, and in the clouds in the poster there's just a red streak, and okay, well, now they're at least acknowledging that Superman exists here. So yeah, it's small bits of world building that can really benefit things in the long run if you decide to go that route. Let me ask you this then: who would you like to have play Dick Grayson?
All right. So with the Batman version that I said, where he goes through the things, I didn't cast it because the problem is you don't know what teenage young actors are out there, and
Okay,
quite honestly, I don't watch enough young television to pick somebody out. You know what I mean?
sure.
So it's like, and then anybody who I think is young, that was 10 years ago, and they're not young.
Yeah.
So, but if I did my Nightwing movie, it's a little, I don't want to say it's a cheat. I have my reasons. But I would honestly cast Austin Butler. He's the guy who
Austin.
just played Elvis.
Oh, okay. Why is that
And
a
this
cheat?
because he's just good looking.
Uh, I
So
mean, no,
Dick,
no. It is established that Dick Grayson is like, his superpower is how unbelievably attractive he is. I mean, I don't like Teen Titans Go, but one of my favorite things they ever did was when Robin took off his mask for the first time, and he was so handsome that it would like disarm villains.
yes, and how dare you, sir? Teen Titans Go is
I
just delicious,
it's
nutritious fun.
it is it just, by the time it was a thing, I was a little, you've got kids, so that
Yeah.
probably helps too. As a single dude in his late 20s when that show came out, it was not pushing the right buttons for me.
All
So
right.
I get that it has its fans. Give me back the old Teen Titans anyway.
All right, what? No, hold on. You can't end away. Have you watched the episodes with the Night Begins to Shine music?
I have no idea what that is.
Okay, I'll be sending it to you later. But no,
Okay.
so Austin Butler, number one, like when you got somebody who's going to play any of these superheroes slash characters, you've got to have somebody who's committed to, getting in shape. But Nightwing, in my opinion, is even beyond that. Like he's essentially almost Spider Man. He's supposed to be more acrobatic than Batman. He's supposed to be nearly as great of a fighter. Like you said, very good looking. It is established in canon that he is like taken off his spiral mask so somebody sees him, and the woman is so attracted to him she crashes her snowmobile. Like that stuff. What's his name? Do you remember him in Midnighter? Midnighter, like okay,
I
cool.
never saw Midnighter.
Oh my gosh. So Midnighter and Nightwing were established as frenemies. And do you know who Midnighter is?
Yeah.
So there's a scene where Dick Grayson as Agent 47 is doing stuff and Midnighter is going after them, and he stops and looks. It's like, I can't see your face with your thing on because I have the thing that like warps their features. He's like, but
Yeah.
I recognize that ass anywhere. That's Dick Grayson.
Oh, I think I've heard about that. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's
And you're just like, I love and hate that all at the same time.
yeah. No, this bugs me, but I get it.
Yeah. So it was interesting to see that, or that, my point more of like Austin Butler is a very good looking man, but also how much he committed to becoming Elvis. I don't know if you've seen that movie.
I haven't had a chance yet, and it's killing me because Baz Luhrmann, I will watch anything Baz Luhrmann makes because for some reason I love everything he touches. Even if it's stupid. Like one of my favorite movies is Moulin Rouge. Is that movie dumb? By all means, but I love it. It's something about, so I haven't seen it yet, and I'm dying to see it.
Yeah. So he just puts it like, my wife is a huge Elvis fan, and even she said like about 20 minutes in, he was Elvis.
Yeah.
So all that means is like he had to commit to learning the physicality and all that kind of stuff. So that means he could learn, get into the fighting, get into as much of the acrobatics he could do, things of that nature that would just really sell this character. And, he's the right age. He's about 30, which if you go canon with Dick Grayson, he's a late 20s, but he looks young. Austin Butler. So I think he could do it. And if he's 30 now, that means you got 10 or 15 films out of him as Nightwing,
Mhm.
or 10 or 15 years of him as Nightwing, which I think would, totally work. So yeah, that he's definitely who I would use, because I think he could do all the things that would be required to play Nightwing.
Okay.
What about you?
All
Who'd you
right.
pick?
So I wanted to go kind of like you. It was hard to pick. First of all, I want to say the way I would tackle putting Dick Grayson in the movies, and this might be a little sacrilegious, but you can find me on Twitter at Mr. Mike Shea and let me know how you feel. Um, my thought is play with the mythology a little bit,
Okay.
because there's no rule saying we have to do things a certain way. Yes, we prefer it, but I'm more interested in what's going to tell a good story with compelling characters than what's necessarily going to be accurate. Um,
Sure.
Case in point, one of the few things they changed in The Sandman for Netflix. At first, I was like, but does it work? The answer is, for the story, the answer is yes.
Yeah.
So my thought process is that sounded
I
weird
was
when I
there.
said
I was there.
we're good. We're on board. We're cooking with fire. Is to bypass Robin and go straight to Nightwing. Play with an older, and like, is he working with him? Yes, but we're not playing with the raised him since he was a child thing. Still filling in that father figure, mentor mentee relationship, but less training this guy from when he was a kid and simply becoming partners with another hero and helping him become the hero that he wants to be.
No.
So because we know that Bloodhaven exists, and I'm playing with this, I'm playing with house money in the Matt Reeves Batman world right now. So because we know that Bloodhaven exists, I thought it would be an interesting idea if the Graysons are an established family in Bloodhaven, like they were to Bloodhaven what the Waynes were to Gotham. Okay.
Okay.
Um, and that's the reason why Nightwing chooses to go back and operate out of Bloodhaven, is because he's seen what Batman can do for his home. He wants to do the same thing for Bloodhaven. That's why he chooses to go there. He gets his start learning to be a hero in Gotham because ultimately the reason that his parents were so successful was because they were the circus family. They created this renowned touring circus, and that's what made their family. The circus has been operating for generations. It's kind of like, P.T. Barnum. It's just been the P.T. Barnum circus. It's been around for forever. That's where their family made their fortune, and it was his parents dying in the circus when it was in Gotham that led to him staying in Gotham, learning to be a hero in Gotham, and then just bypassing Robin and just becoming Nightwing, and then ultimately choosing to go back to Bloodhaven because that's his home and he wants to do for Bloodhaven what Bruce Wayne and Batman have done for Gotham. Now, what I'm big on, though, is focusing on the character of Dick Grayson as well. That I at least want to be as accurate as possible. I want someone who is intelligent, but who is also, he's kind of got a little bit of that Spider-Man snark. Like, he's snarky, he's sarcastic, he's got a mouth on him. So I wanted an actor who could handle that. People talk a lot of crap about the Andrew Garfield Spider-Mans, but one of the things that Andrew Garfield did really well was he had that wit. He had that sense of humor. So I between three actors, and I'm leaning towards one more than the other two, but I think any one of these three could pull it off because they have the youth, but they've also got the acting chops. They've got the humor down, and they've got the versatility in what they can do. Now I'm going to count these down from the one I want the least to the one I want the most. Okay.
Okay. Do it.
So the one that I want the least, but I still think could pull it off, is Finn Wolfhard from Stranger Things. I think he could pull the humor really well. I think he's got that kind of, if you haven't seen him, by the way, he's very good in Ghostbusters Afterlife.
Yes, he was.
He's very good in Ghostbusters Afterlife. And frankly, he was good in It and It Chapter 2 as well. I thought it is, and I still can't believe I'm saying that because I'm terrified of clowns and I hate that. I hate those movies based solely on the fact that I hate clowns. But and obviously there's no denying how he's very good in Stranger Things as well. I mean, there's part of the reason why. He's a very good young actor. The physicality, obviously he would have to kind of do what a lot of actors do. He'd have to go to the gym. He'd have to get in shape. He'd have to train. But I think he could do it in terms of
Yeah.
from an acting standpoint. I think he could do it. He's a little bit on the younger side of the other two for what I want him to do. But again, I also have a very hard time saying nay to anybody because look what Robert Pattinson pulled off.
Yeah.
So my number 2 choice is a bit more the other way. He's kind of a lot of the stuff he's done in recent years has been a little outside of what I like to see him in, but particularly there's one role in particular that I think really leans to what I think he could do. And so that actor is Freddie Highmore, which if you don't know who Freddie Highmore is, you may know him from Finding Neverland or Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, or you might know him from more recent things such as Bates Motel or The Good Doctor.
Yes, there we are. There, I was like, I was picturing the face, but I couldn't remember what I'd seen him in.
Now, I don't love The Good Doctor, but that's not a him issue. That's a concept issue. As somebody who used to work with kids on the autism spectrum when I was teaching, I'm a little tired of all these shows that basically treat autism like it's a superpower.
Fair.
I'm a little, there's a little too many of those happening. I'm a little tired of that, but particularly the way he plays in Bates Motel, where he's intense and soft spoken, but is often funny without trying to be. The way he did Norman Bates, I think also when I look at him, like on his Wikipedia, I'm looking at this picture of him in a tuxedo from, when he was at the GQ Men of the Year Awards ceremony. He looks like someone who would be standing next to Bruce Wayne at some event wearing a tux begrudgingly.
Yeah.
Like he just looks like someone who's just like, I really don't want to be here. Like I'm putting on a front right now. But again, acting wise, I think he could really pull it off. But the one that I really, really want to see pull this off, and I know that he can pull off physicality. I know he can pull off, the charm of youth. I know that he can be funny because he's very funny on Sex Education. And he's a guy who I thought was going to be a bigger star when I first saw him than he is now. And that is Asa Butterfield.
Okay. Yeah.
You might know him from Hugo. I know him most of all from Ender's Game. I think he was very good in Ender's Game. He was in Miss Peregrine's Home for Peculiar Children, which was fine. He was in, but right now he's doing that show, Sex Education, on I think that's on HBO Max. I could be wrong. No, it's on Netflix. It's on Netflix.
I think it's Netflix.
Yeah, it's Netflix. It's a very funny show. He's very funny in it. But if you look at him now, like all grown up, like he just kind of looks like a grown up Dick Grayson.
No, I could see it. I could definitely see it.
And I really liked him, like even at a young age doing Ender's Game, he still had to get in like some decent physical shape for that. And I thought he did a very good job. And I've always thought that this kid should be a much bigger actor than a bigger star than he is right now. And I think also when I look at the age group, like, cause he's 25 right now, for the way I want to do Nightwing as young, but not a kid.
Yeah.
As someone who's more looking for a mentor to learn how to be a hero, to basically be his own kind of version of Batman. I think Asa Butterfield is kind of in that right mold for what I would want to see.
No, I think that's definitely on point. And I think there's nothing wrong with playing with the lore. There is definitely take the Robin out of it. Because I mean, there's also a point of like, why the hell would you call anybody Robin?
Yeah, it's when you get into the Robin, Dick Grayson as a character in general is fantastic. It's the Robin of it all that makes it very difficult to tell in cinematically. Dick Grayson would work great in a movie. It's the character of Robin specifically where things get difficult, not impossible, just difficult. And removing it is maybe a little bit of a cop out. But again, if it benefits the storytelling of everything, I can live with that.
Well, even if you do, because I mean, when you read the Nightwing comics, he, the big thing with him when he gets to his, later years is he becomes a cop for a long time.
Yeah.
So even if you played with that, is that like his idea of I'm going to go to Gotham and clean it up so I can clean up, Bloodhaven, or even if he tries to become a cop in Bloodhaven and he has to come to Gotham to become a cop, have him be a rookie cop who just stumbles across something that leads him into following Nightwing's or Batman's footsteps, and then makes him decide I'm going to be a crime fighter. And then Batman's like, all right, dude, you're going to get yourself killed. Let me talk you out of this. And then you have that go from there.
Which I think is kind of what they were going for in The Dark Knight Rises.
Yeah.
A little bit. And I am saying that while chewing on a big piece of crow, because I like that movie just fine. Everything to do with Joseph Gordon-Levitt could have been removed.
Yes.
Again, really like the movie, really like Joseph Gordon-Levitt. Take all of that out of that movie. But we're going to talk about Dark Knight Rises on another show coming up.
Correct.
But yeah, I think that's what they were kind of going for. And there's actually a fan-made comic of a sequel to The Dark Knight Rises that makes The Dark Knight Rises work a little bit, but I'll bring that up on that next show. But yeah, like you said, like there's a lot of different ways to play with this lore to still have kind of a similar relationship, but just not the same one, because like I said, it's just getting Robin to work. And that's the whole reason we're doing this episode to begin with, is getting Robin to work in a cinematic sense. When you take into account everyone's favorite style of Batman is kind of the dark, gritty detective version, it's very hard to tell that kind of Batman story and make Robin work. Nightwing, you can make it work really well, but making Robin work is very difficult, especially when you're confined to a 2 to 3 hour movie.
Correct. Well, I mean, I think we pretty much nailed that one. I like your idea. I mean, I even like when you were saying the whole thing about his family being, from Bloodhaven. I even like had a moment of like, it would be interesting if he came, maybe he's 4 or 5 years younger than Bruce. And when it happens, he comes to Bruce as hey, we both are orphans. How are you dealing with this? This is what I'm thinking about doing. And not knowing Bruce Wayne is Batman.
Yeah.
And him going like, hey, you should help me become this guy who can fight crime like the Batman that's here. And Bruce Wayne going like, do I tell him it's me?
Yeah. There's so many different ways you can play with this story and with this relationship and still have it work. It just, you're gonna have to fudge the lore a little bit. If you try to do it comic book accurate, fine, then make me believe that Bruce Wayne would take a 12-year-old out in tights. I mean, you've got to make that realistic. And as much as I love those comics, part of the reason we love this version of the Batman is because it's grounded a little bit in reality, and there's just not a version of it where that works.
Yeah.
Now, I'd love to see Snyder's idea, because we know that in his world that Robin's been established and the Joker killed him. So I'd love to know what his plan for that was, if he had one. But also he didn't show us that. He just jumped ahead to, we had a Robin and he died. And we're just going to leave it at that. So again, it's like, because I think even he kind of understands that, Robin kind of hard to make work. So this is our best attempt at making it work. Maybe you hate everything we came up with. I'm sure a lot of you especially hate my idea, and I am totally fine with that. You can let me know. You can let us know on Twitter. Our show is on Twitter at We Are the Batman, or you can find me on Twitter at Mr. Mike Shea.
Or come at me at Mr. J Ninja.
Just send us the hate. Let us hear it. That's what Twitter's for. Just send it at us. When you're not tweeting at how dumb Warner Brothers Discovery is being, you can let us know how dumb we're being. And until next time, we'll catch you guys here with another episode of We Are the Batman. Same bat time, same bat podcast channel.
Bye-bye.